part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome to another edition of the Red Guy and Rhoda podcast, brought to you by MGM Northfield Park, and it's brought to you right here on the Press Play Podcast Network by MGM. We appreciate their sponsorship. We love our partners at Press Play Podcast, and we love Mo Barrow stepping in for the esteemed Dave Emmert, who is off today, and Mo was kind enough to step in so we could tape this thing on a Sunday night right after the Browns. Michael Red Guy finished up with an 8-9 record after beating the backups of the Bengals by the final score of 21-16. So I guess a positive end to what was a very disappointing season is the best way I can say it, I guess.
Only way to say it, Kenny. And we've been alluding to this for the last few weeks. I mean, 8-9, just not going to cut it in this new 17-game format. It keeps the Browns out of the playoffs. They were out of the playoffs a week ago, and a very disappointing away for this season with so much expectation, so much that was on the line for the Browns. And Kenny, again, with the bulk of the National Football League world, if you will, expecting those things to happen for the Browns. So I don't know how anybody could say it's anything other than a major disappointment. There are a lot of factors that go into that we'll discuss today. You like the effort they played with. They, as you said, it was against a not normal Cincinnati Bengals football team, and the Browns did what they did offensively. I think they ran, or Dearness Johnson ran for $135, so they got the win. And again, that all having been said, though, is just I even kind of makes it more painful a little bit, quite honestly, huh?
Reg, why did it take until the 17th game of the season for them to run it 41 times and only throw it 24 times when the strength of their team was the run game? That's what frustrated the hell out of me today as I was at my normal place on a Sunday afternoon, Jersey Sports Bar and Grill in Canton with the Stark County Browns backers, and Case Keenum gets to start for the injured Baker Mayfield, who will have surgery on January 19th, 4 to 6 months. They hope to have him back June, July, OTAs, somewhere in there. And today, was it because Baker was not playing and therefore they don't trust Case Keenum like they trusted an injured, banged up, poor performing Baker Mayfield? So they wanted to run the ball more. I was just baffled that it took this damn long for them to run it more than they throw it. And, what do you know? Yeah, it was against the backups, but they still got a victory. And for whatever reason, whether it's the starters or the backups, they are now 7-1 in the last 8 games against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, and Kenny, you know how I feel about it. I'm not buying the thing about trust Case Keenum. You don't trust him. You're paying $6 million a year to be the highest paid backup quarterback in the National Football League, and then you don't trust him to go out there and execute your offense efficiently? Come on, man. That's a bunch of BS right there, because if you did, then Andrew Berry, I don't know what you're writing those kind of checks for to a guy that you don't feel can win for you if you got to step in. We've seen Keenum. He's been a starting quarterback in the league, and that's all fine. And today, Kenny was, as I said, kind of a bunch of fluff. It made me more disappointed and angry as I watched the game, quite frankly, that this organization allowed this season to turn into what it did, a failure.
Yeah, big time failure, Michael. As you pointed out, the spotlight was on them. The pressure was on. They had success last year. How would they handle it? And we got the answer to that. They handled it very poorly. And, from my perspective, I had them going 11-6 and winning a tiebreaker to win the division. Well, they finished 8-9. So 3 games under my expectations and no playoff appearance. Still have not made back-to-back years in the playoffs since they returned in 1999. I know.
Think about that, Kenny, for all the various front office changes, head coaching changes, quarterback changes. I mean, come on now. I mean, this it's difficult to comprehend that they let things happen this way. I mean, it just is. Period.
Reg, after the first 2 weeks, we were looking at this football team and saying this. All right, they're 1-1, right? But offensively, they're putting up points, right?
Yeah.
But defensively, man, they're giving up way too many points. This defense could be a major problem all year long. And little did we know that it would be completely reversed, where the defense would find itself and the offense would be non-existent for most of the last 10 to 12 games of the season.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Is it Baker's injury? Is everything blamed on Baker's injury at quarterback? Is that what we're going to hear from a Kevin Stefanski at his year-end press conference, from an Andrew Berry in his year-end press conference? Because already Baker had his exit interview with Kevin Stefanski.
Right.
And according to Mary Kay Cabot, the Browns are planning on moving forward with him in his fifth year as their starting quarterback.
Well, that's, of course, I don't think that you're not going to get anything else said about that right now, to be sure. But, when you look at this situation in totality, Kenny, that's what I mean. I think I said it last week. To me, the spotlight's going on Andrew Berry in a big time way now. And that's not, Andrew's done a very good job. Very good job with this roster, but he's going to have to repeat it and do it again, because he's got, and it starts with the quarterback situation, but there are other areas as well, Kenny. He's got to get a couple interior defensive linemen that are more productive in here. He's got to get a receiver or two in here. So you got a lot of spots in this football team you got to enhance, right, and make better. So, once again, and that's the way I think GMs in the National Football League and guys that run player personnel, they understand that, especially when you don't make the playoffs. Come on, man. You got a lot of work to do now. A lot of work to do.
Shout out to Myles Garrett, though, today. Racked up sack number 16. That is an all-time record for a single season for the Cleveland Browns. He added to his record already, which was 15 coming into the game. He finishes with 16, Reg, and Jadeveon Clowney pockets an extra $250,000, according to social media today, after racking up sacks numbers 8 and 9 in the season, coming off a year where he didn't have any sacks a year ago. So a nice signing there. And you mentioned Dearness Johnson and Nick Chubb finishing second, I believe, in the NFL in rushing this year, after he ran for 58 more yards today in a limited role. They ran for over 200 yards as a team. I almost said Baker Mayfield turned it over twice. Case Keenum turned it over twice with an interception and a fumble, which was just horrendous.
It was.
For a veteran to
I know.
Fred, I saw the play. It was covered. They had it covered, blanketed, throw the ball away, live to play another down, and that gave the Bengals life in that game. And I was surprised that a veteran like Case Keenum would make a stupid mistake like that today.
Yeah, well, I was too. And, it didn't cost the Browns today. Hey, listen, Kenny, I think we all universally would have liked to see Case Keenum play a little bit more football this year.
Yeah.
Again, and I'll say it for about the umpteenth millionth time, but because it's a fact. You paid, that man makes double. He didn't hold you up or stick you up for it.
Right.
You decided, Cleveland Browns, to make him the highest paid backup quarterback, double in the National Football League.
Yep.
And boy, you had reasons to use him multiple times this year to see if that type of investment that you made would turn you into geniuses. And they didn't do it. They passed on it over and over and over. So, Ken, what are you gonna do? Well, you gonna bring Keenum back again for the same amount of money? Gonna pay him another $6 million?
No,
to stand
I'm not.
There, you can't do that again.
No,
you can't.
You can't. I'd like to see
that's
him back, but not at that price. Yeah,
I'll
not
make
at that
it clear.
price.
It's nothing against Case. Right. I like Case. But you cannot, you can't even get close to that with him. He wants to play for a couple $1 million and be the backup. Fine. Anything more than that? No, you cannot do. That was an egregious error. And then you compounded it by not playing the man when you should have.
I'm with you, Reg. I'm laughing because you and I are on the same page. We have been for a while, and it's mind-boggling in a year where 9-8 gets you in the playoffs almost, right? 10-7 for sure.
10-7 for sure. 9-8, good possibility. Yeah.
you play him in a couple of those games that were one possession games, 6 points or less losses. You probably win at least one of those games, maybe two. And we're sitting about, all right, who are they playing next week in the playoffs as the 7th or 6th seed, right? Instead, we're talking about them being in the draft somewhere between 12 and 17 with an 8-9 record and finishing in 3rd place in the AFC North because of tiebreakers with the Baltimore Ravens. So at least you don't finish, I guess, in the cellar if you're looking for glass half full bullshit.
Yeah,
right?
Well, yeah, and that's all that is too, with a lot of all that that minutia hanging on it and all that BS stuff. Yes, you're right, sir. Here we go. So now it's going to be, again, you're going to have to find, and you're not, listen, fans, if you think that, and again, you're going to get a lot of questions answered like the ones Kenny and I are presenting. You're not going to, and we'll see. You'll know, obviously. You'll know when decision, they'll make a decision on the quarterback. And Ken, many people feel like that Baker Mayfield will be back here next year, as long as everything goes right surgically, as a starting quarterback on his football team.
Yeah, that was Mary Kay's report today, that he will be in his 5th year and there will be no contract extension in the offseason, but he will come back as the front runner for the starting job. And we'll see if they bring anybody in to challenge him, Michael Regai, draft anybody to challenge him, or if it's, his football team next year. And let's see what he can do healthy in year number 5. So far, 2 good years, 2 bad years for Baker Mayfield.
Right.
And the one thing I will say that was a positive for the Cleveland Browns involving Baker Mayfield, Reg, we agreed that they should not have played him in some games in case should have had more opportunities to play. But I at least give them credit for not extending his contract, because that was the right decision, because you still don't know what you have with Baker Mayfield. And I guess maybe it's a put up or shut up, show me, prove it kind of year number 5 for Baker Mayfield next year.
Even his largest, his most omnipresent guys who back him, Kenny.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can say that, has he played well at times? Yeah. But I just don't see a championship Super Bowl winning quarterback there as of yet.
Right.
And that's what you're looking at. So if you're looking at that, from that regard, does that make it a little bit more plausible, I guess, for Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski to want to pull the trigger? We don't know how they really do feel about Baker Mayfield, right? We're not 100% sure how they feel. None of us are. And if anybody says they are, I'm sorry. We don't. There's a lot to certainly unwrap in all of this, right? And, we'll see where it's going to go. I believe that, he'll be back next year. Now, a lot of people say, well, you got to at least bring in some competition. Well, you got the backup quarterback who's won and taken teams to the playoffs, so you're paying him $6 million.
Started 3 games for you, went 2-1 for you this year, right?
Aren't you going to start there? And why in God's name, then, did you pay him $6 million if you didn't believe that he could have necessarily get you to the playoffs? It really is confounding.
All right, let's do this, Reg. Let's get our first break in. All right, when we come back, we've got 2 segments left. We're going to look at the negatives and the positives. And we're going to start with the negatives because they finished 8-9 and didn't make the playoffs. And there are more negatives than positives in this season. So when we come back, we're going to break down the negatives and maybe what they can do to fix those negatives. And then we'll get to some of the positives. There weren't a lot, but there were a few positives before we get done with this edition of the R&R podcast, brought to you by MGM Northfield Park here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey, it's Tito, host of the Premier Fantasy Podcast. Get all the news and analysis you need to dominate your fantasy league. I've been doing this as long as anybody in the business. I can help give you the edge in your leagues. It's the Premier Fantasy Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome back to the Regai and Rhoda podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network, powered by MGM Northfield Park. Northfield Park is your home for live and simulcast racing, free admission, Free parking every day at Northfield Park. All right, Michael Regai, 8-9 is the record the Browns posted for the 2021 season after beating the Bengals 21-16 on Sunday. And disappointing is the best way to describe it, the nicest way to describe it, Michael. What are the biggest negatives in this 8-9 season for you? I made my list. I'm going to defer to you, and I'll see how many you cross off of my list, and then I'll add a few if you don't touch on what I thought were some of the negatives. What were the ones that stood out to you?
Well, I'm going to go from a team perspective, okay? First of all, just the very maddening inconsistency of a play in concert from week to week between offense, defense, and your special teams. We said it. Defensively, they start the year in a real rough patch, right? Get that squared away, and then they started to do some things defensively that would allow you to win football games. And of course, that is tied in then with the offense not being able to average more than 13 points a game. So to me, the biggest thing overall, the inconsistency of the entire football team and the inability of Kevin Stefanski and his coaches to find a way to get it right. I just defy, if you could tell me that oh yeah, we know the Browns are going to do this week to week to week through an 18-week, 17-game season, how? What would give you that kind of thing to say this is a team that knows how to play in concert to get things done? That's the biggest thing for me. Secondly, we already touched upon it again. You got to get much more out of the quarterback position, Ken. You cannot win in the National Football League if we're talking about playing for championships with the quarterbacking issues that came up, the lack of strong play at times. Then there'll be that Cincinnati game at Cincinnati that shows up back. They put 41 points on the board. Again, the whole thing for me is tied into the big bow of just a terrible amount of inconsistency from the coaching staff on down from week to week.
You just said coaching staff. And a lot of people are going to point to Baker Mayfield as to why this team finished 8-9. And I'm not going to point to that as the biggest reason. I'm going to point to the coaching staff who kept putting Baker Mayfield out there on the field, Michael Regai, after week 2 when he tore his labrum trying to make a tackle on an interception that he threw. And for Kevin Stefanski, for whatever reason, unless he was getting word from the penthouse, let him play. If he's healthy enough to play, put him out there. We need to see if that's the case, then it's on the front office. If not, for me, Kevin Stefanski regressed as much, if not more, than Baker Mayfield did this year. But Michael, I think he holds. He holds the NFL record, single season record. And maybe it's just me and I'm over exaggerating here, but I think he holds the NFL record for most timeouts kept at the end of the first half and at the end of the game. And for whatever reason, I don't know if he gets bonuses for those, like Jadeveon Clowney got bonuses for sacks this year. Maybe that's in his contract. I don't know, Michael. It's just there were times where I'm thinking to myself, why the hell aren't you running the football? Take the pressure off Baker. Play action off the run, which is what Baker's best at. You got timeouts left. Use them. Set your offense. I just was so frustrated with Kevin Stefanski as the head coach, as the offensive coordinator of this football team. And to me, that is a major reason why they finished 8-9 after going 11-5 last year when he was the coach of the year in the National Football League. So poor coaching and no doubt poor quarterback play. Baker Mayfield, Michael, I saw the stats that they were putting up there today. We were looking at them at Jersey's in Canton. Baker Mayfield, where is it here? In 2020, passing yards per game, 223, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. This year, 215 yards a game, 17 touchdowns, 13 picks. He was 11-5 as a starter last year, 6-8 as a starter this year. And the first 6 weeks were decent. Weeks 8 through 17 were horrendous for him. So that definitely has to get better. No question about that. And Michael, not only does the quarterback play have to get better, maybe this will help the quarterback play get better. The wide receiver room's got to be just turned over. They need to find a whole new, maybe they should hire Brian Hartline to come in and coach the wide receivers with the Cleveland Browns, because the job he's done at Ohio State, and I know it's recruiting and all that, but still, those guys are top notch. The receiver room is terrible. So a coaching change, who's ever in charge of that, as well as personnel change for me in the receiver room, that needs to be addressed as soon as possible via roster cuts, then free agency signings, then the draft or trades.
Yeah, no question about that. You got to upgrade it. Now, when the year started, Odell Beckham Jr. was the one. Look, I like Jarvis Landry a lot, and but there again, now he's I guess your two, meaning your number two wide receiver,
right?
But again, $15 million a year, right?
Yep.
Which I can't imagine you're going to go to Jarvis and asked for him to hey, if you play for $6-7 million for us, that'll get him to want to stay here, right? So yeah, you got to do things with the wide receiver room. But Kenny, it's going to go back to me. I hope that and again, listen, just like when you're a quarterback in the NFL, if you're the head football coach, right, and you designate yourself to be the play caller, correct?
Yep.
And not your offensive coordinator, I would hope that Kevin Stefanski, who I feel is a sharp guy and a good football mind, but Kenny, he needs to take an earnest, honest, long, hard, self-appraising look in the mirror about what he is attempting to do offensively, because I think it was a big problem this year.
Michael, as I think back of the season now, 8 and 9, and something we talked about here on the R&R podcast throughout the entire season, one word: close. The inability to close. The coach's inability to call the right plays, put the team in the best position to close games. The quarterback having the opportunity that, yes, while the defense gave up some points, you had the ball in your hand with a chance to close. The defense at times, after the quarterback put points up for you, you had the chance. It was a problem of monumental proportions dating back to last year's playoff game against the Kansas City Chiefs, Michael Regai. They couldn't close that game when Chad Henne was the quarterback and not Patrick Mahomes. And it carried over into games this year where they couldn't close as a defense and offense. The coaching staff and Baker Mayfield went 0 for 5, I believe. Maybe it was 0 for 6 with opportunities in late game situations to drive his team. Hell, the ancient Ben Roethlisberger, who could barely walk today playing against the Baltimore Ravens, he's so damn old, found a way twice to bring his team back and put them in a position to possibly make the playoffs if the Chargers and Raiders don't tie a game now. So Baker's got to learn how to close as a quarterback. Kevin Stefanski needs to put him in a better position to close. And the defense, when given the opportunity, they need to close too. So handling the pressure, the spotlight, success, and the ability or inability to close, to me, is a major problem with this football team moving forward.
Yeah, no question about that. And again, and let's remember, for those of you maybe that think, whoa, Regan and Rhoda are being real hard on Coach Stefanski. Remember, Kenny, what is his football area of expertise?
Offense.
The offensive side of the ball.
Yep.
Quarterbacks, the offensive unit, that room. That's what he's done his whole career, and certainly well at times.
Yes.
I don't call it well right now. Kevin Stefanski, to me, regressed this year, Ken. He regressed. Again, you're going to earnestly, honestly, Kevin, take a look at it and figure out why you regressed, why your staff regressed, why you decided you're going to call the plays. Didn't make it any better. Well, what about that made it better? And again, that is your area of expertise as a football coach. Got to get better. And they got to find a way to start working on that. Make moves, but you got to get better with that next year. Coaching staff starts with Kevin Stefanski. Got to get better.
And the last thing we'll throw in on the negative side before we get to a break is special teams, Michael. They weren't special at all. They were terrible at times. The punters, both of them that they had, inconsistent. The kickers, nice job, you effing kicker. Nice job. They were terrible, after a great start. But when all of a sudden games mattered most, they couldn't handle the pressure. So that's an area that needs to be addressed as well. The kicker, the punter, the return game, because it did not do you any favors this season in helping you win games or put you in a better position to win games. So special teams needs to be addressed as well this offseason.
No doubt about that. Yeah.
Let's get a break in our final one, Reg, and then we'll come back here on the MGM Northfield Park Reg Iron Road podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. And we'll sing some of the praises of the players or units or individuals that deserve the praise, even though the team went 8-9 and they didn't make the playoffs. So come back with us, find out who we thought did have good years for the Browns and maybe provided something to build on for the future.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And we continue with the R&R podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network. We are powered by MGM Northfield Park. You're looking for a good time. You're looking for something to do. You want to have some fun. Go watch the Trotters. Go wager on the horses. Have some fun. It'll be a hell of a lot more fun than the Browns 8-9 season. I guarantee that for you, my friends. So head on out to Northfield Park. They're your home for live and simulcast racing. Open early every day for that simulcast action. Free admission, free parking every day at Northfield Park. All right, Michael Regai, 8-9. We've broken down the Bengals game briefly. All the bad things, a lot of them that went wrong for the Browns, leading to them not making the playoffs. What about some positives from this season that if you're looking to build off of going into next year, even though this was a disappointing season? Where would those positives be in your opinion?
Well, I'll start offensively. Nick Chubb's a hell of a running back. He's one of the best, maybe the best. Him, Myles Garrett, ever. Certainly one of the top couple of football players on this team, and needs to be someone that you always hitch the wagon to. Nick Chubb is an outstanding NFL running back and a guy that I think that can be your lead running back and win you football games. So and get you into the playoffs if things are used properly and correctly. Thought Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney both had very, very strong years with their pressure and ability to get after quarterbacks, of course. He didn't play today, but you know how I've been about Denzel Ward. It's not that he can't play. It's that he averages about 11, 12 games a year throughout his career. Well, he was able to get through that, and I thought Ward had a very, very good year. From a consistency standpoint, I think those are the guys that mostly stood out to me. But again, Kenny, there's as we talked about earlier, there's probably more from a negative aspect than there is from a positive aspect when you look at overall the bottom line failure of this football team.
Do they extend Denzel Ward in the offseason, Michael? Did he do enough, in your opinion, to earn an extension? They're not going to give it to Baker. So do you do that now with him as you make other moves, maybe to trim the fat as far as salary goes, like by getting rid of Austin Hooper and that worthless contract, and trimming the fat with Jarvis Landry, solid player, but not worth the money they're paying him? Do you cut a couple of guys like that to make sure you can keep a lockdown corner in Denzel Ward?
Yeah, you have to, Kenny, because of where you drafted him and for the reasons that you just said. I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed that Denzel, his rest of his career is like this year and not like the previous years where he averaged 11, 12 football games a year in a 16-game season. Because again, Ken, I'm always going to stick with this. And this is not Denzel's a very good player. What the hell does that matter if you're not on the football field?
Right.
So you just know, you're paying the money. But I guess there's always that. The least thought's going to be in my mind, is he going to make it through a season physically?
Yeah. Today, he did not play because of COVID.
No.
Okay. So it wasn't an injury. It was a COVID situation. So that's not a knock on his injury history. But as you pointed out, Michael Regai, what's the best ability? Availability.
It is.
And that's not something he's very strong at through the first 4 years in his career. But when he is out there, he's Pro Bowl caliber.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Just, now that 17 game season, excuse me. Yeah, Ken, I got to see out there producing at least 15 games a year.
Yeah.
We'll give you the here and there for some nicks and stuff. But again, he's averaged about 12 in his first 3 seasons. That is not enough for that kind of money. Got to be more.
Agree with you 100%. Agree with you about Myles Garrett, 16 sacks, Jadeveon Clowney. Do you bring Clowney back? And if so, what type of a contract?
Well,
I mean, 9 sacks to go along with Garrett's 16. That's 25. That's got to be up there in the top 3 or 4, right?
Yeah,
with a duo in the NFL.
What were they paying him this year?
You know what? I don't even know.
Was it 10? 11?
You have the chance. Was it the chance with the bonuses to make that money?
Yeah. He had some things in there. Yeah. Well, but regardless, I think, and especially because, and let's be honest, if I'm Jadeveon Clowney, I like the fact, number one, you are not going to ever be the prime area of what your opposition does with you each week. That's going to go all to Myles Garrett. So when you got a chance to play with someone like him, I don't think anything but a positive. I would love that if I'm someone with the capabilities of Jadeveon Clowney, Kenny.
I'm looking at it. Fully guaranteed was $7 million plus bonuses for Jadeveon Clowney this year. So, like I said, he made $250,000 in bonuses, I think, today with a couple of sacks. So let's see if he wants a multi-year deal. Can they get him on a 1-year deal? Not sure. Some other positives for me, Michael Regai. Besides Ward, Clowney, Garrett on the defensive side, Chubb, I think, is the best football player on the team. They just need to learn how to use him better. I got to give a shout out to Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. He will make the all-rookie team on defense. He's not going to get rookie of the year, but, Micah Parsons is going to get defensive rookie of the year. But Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah impressed me this year, Michael, and maybe not as consistent, but Greg Newsome impressed me as well. So their first 2 picks I liked. And what I saw on the defensive side of the ball, 3 through 7 after that, Michael, very unimpressive. The other rookies that they selected this past year. So a shout out to JOK and Greg Newsome for their job as rookies this year, and to Joe Woods, who turned the defense around, Michael. We were poking fun at them. We were wondering if he'd make it through the season as the defensive coordinator. And if it wasn't for that defense late in the season with an offense that had trouble scoring, they would have lost 3 or 4 more games. The defense kept them in a lot of games and actually won them a couple of games. So I've got to give, a shout out to Joe Woods and that defense for the improvement that they made from weeks 1 and 2, and even that Chargers game to the end of the season.
Yeah, no question about it. Owusu-Koramoah is a hell of a football player, and I think he's going to be as time goes on, and not the biggest guy in the world, not the most, but he is a tackling machine, and love the way he plays. And I think you're going to see him. He'll lead that linebacking core going forward, and that's the type of young player that you want here. Greedy Williams, Kenny, I thought, again, he had his moments this year where another one, though, that, we haven't seen a whole hell of a lot of because he hasn't been on the football field a lot. But, if nothing else, I think he can be one of, usually you got 5 DBs that are in this NFL. They're going to be playing, a lot and get a lot of reps and snaps. So I think there's something that can be done there. So there are your headline makers. I like the offensive line in general, although, Kenny, I'll throw them into the as a unit. Joel Bitonio is an outstanding player. We know that. I really like Wyatt Teller, too, as, one of the strengths is what an offensive guard and interior offensive lineman should be. But again, Kenny, Jack Conklin got hurt all year long and he didn't play much football. Jed Wills was injured quite a bit. Didn't see him make big time improvement that you were hoping for this year. So when you get into these type of situations, again, that's what I mean about roster composition and what it's got to be and why I think Andrew Berry has got to be got some pieces. Now you got to add to them and certainly find a way to enhance that and get guys that are going to be better.
Reg, this football team, as we look at it overall now as a whole, from the GM to the coach to the players on the field, we thought on paper they had as much talent, if not more, than anybody in the division, and yet they finished third in the division. The Bengals come from nowhere, 4 wins a year ago. And go 10-7 and claim the division. The Steelers somehow, some way, end up 9-7-1 with a chance of being the last seed in the Eastern. Check that, not the Eastern Conference, Cavaliers there, the American Football Conference, the AFC. So the Browns are third in the division. The Steelers need a new quarterback. The Ravens, I guess Lamar will be back next year. He was injured. They lost 6 in a row to end the season. It goes back to that quarterback play. Joe Burrow, again, it's only 2 years, small sample size, but the kid's got king size cojones and is, putting up numbers the last 2 weeks that he actually played that were better than any quarterback in the entire league and helped them win a division. So I don't want to say it's Cincinnati's division now, Michael, but is it? I mean, do you have to look at it that way where it looked like, all right, it was the Browns-Ravens division. Now is it the Bengals-Ravens division with the Browns and Steelers below those two teams? Or how do you view this AFC North now after what we've seen this year?
Well, again, you're certainly just rolling around in water if you don't have the quarterback, and they've got the best quarterback in the division in Joe Burrow. Because again, you got to be able to throw the ball. I know Lamar Jackson is a special athlete, but Lamar Jackson, there's a reason in the postseason that he hasn't fared too well yet early in his career, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, I want the guy that can throw the football 40 times when you need it and throw you 3 touchdown passes and throw for 300 yards, and that's what Joe Burrow can do. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati right now, Kenny, because they've got the best quarterback in the division.
Yeah, I look at them and I say quarterback, check. Skill position players, well, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, rookie of the year, check. Running back, Joe Mixon, check. Offensive line, but that can be addressed, right? That can be fixed via free agency trades or in the draft or all of the above. Defensively, I still think they need to get better. They made major improvements this year, but I don't think they'll make a deep run because I don't think they're going to be able to stop the elite offenses. So it'll come down to, can they be perfect enough on offense to outscore teams in the postseason? So for me, the Bengals have to get better defensively. I think the Browns are better than the Bengals are defensively, but offensively, no, night and day. The Bengals numero uno in the entire division. Best offense in the division, Cincinnati Bengals. No doubt about it. Yes.
Sure.
So, they'll be known as the defending champs next year, and everybody's looking up at them, and we'll see how they do in the playoffs. But that surprised the hell out of me this year, Michael. I didn't expect them to maybe arrive until next year. So kudos to Zach Taylor, Joey Burrow, one team, one heartbeat, go Tigers, and the Cincinnati Bengals. They caught me by surprise, and I think a lot of people in the NFL by surprise, don't you think?
Yeah, well, there's no question about that, and you're right about some of the things that they got to take care of. But hey, just about every football team's got to have things that they better take care of, and they'd like to be better at. And yes, that offensive line is one that has to improve to keep Burrow healthy and keep him upright. But Kenny, they got the guy, and I think that they've got a real bright future ahead of them. And we'll see now again how the Browns go about trying to get to where Cincinnati certainly has shown that they can be offensively, because that this is now an offensive game, right, Ken? I mean, this NFL. You got to have the trigger man, and you got to have an offense that can go get you 35 when you have to have it. And the Browns do not have that right now. So they're going to have to find a way to be able to get to that level offensively, first and foremost, if they're going to deal with Cincinnati in the North.
Michael, I'm trying to figure it out here on the fly as we're taping this edition of the R&R podcast. How about the Rams blowing what was a 14-0 lead against
17-0.
17, my bad.
17-0.
Yeah, they were up 17-0, and in overtime, Jimmy G, and I'll throw that name out there, Jimmy Garoppolo, in the final year of his contract next year, right?
Yep.
32-14 now as a starter, I believe, for the 49ers. They have Trey Lance waiting in the wings, who they drafted high. I'm just throwing a name out there. If you're not happy with Baker Mayfield, right, then you're looking maybe for somebody out there to consider as far as a trade or the whatever. He's a guy that I think would be on a short list for some teams, don't you think?
Yeah, he would be. And to me, Kenny, I think it comes down to honestly one of three veteran quarterbacks, I guess, and we're not counting Case Keenum in this one. Okay. But, it's probably the biggest thoughts are, Jimmy Garoppolo and I'm drawing about because Russ Wilson's not coming to Cleveland.
No, he's not.
He's not coming here.
He's got a no trade clause. So that he's not coming to Cleveland. Jimmy
Cousins.
G, maybe Kirk Cousins because of his relationship with Stefanski. That's the other one out there, right? And then as a free agent, Mitch Trubisky is out there as just a sure free agent that you can sign. You don't have to trade for.
That's the third. And the fourth, again, this is all under the realistic bubble. Because I'm sorry, Russ Wilson to me is not under the realistic bubble.
Same with Aaron Rodgers.
Thank you. I was going to say next. I don't care how much Aaron Rodgers rips the Aaron Rodgers isn't coming to quarterback to Cleveland Browns.
Right.
Okay, so that it's Cousins, right? It's Garoppolo, and I'm beginning to wonder about him too. But we'll keep him in there for the time being. And it's Marcus Mariota, Kenny.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Marcus Mariota, Cousins, and Garoppolo, and I don't know who we just said the other one.
Do any of those guys tickle your fancy or excite you more than Baker Mayfield? That's the question you have to ask. Sindelar would always tell me this. Rhoda, okay, you want to get rid of the guy because he's dog crap. That's fine. Who do you have to replace him? And that's what you have to look at, right? Who do you have that's better than, Baker Mayfield? Is Jimmy G better than Baker? Well, his record says it is as a starter, but he had a better team around him, maybe, although Browns were supposed to have a good team and Baker didn't play well. Mitchell Trubisky has a better starting record percentage-wise than Baker Mayfield. He's a free agent. So if you want Jimmy G, you're going to have to trade for him. If you want Mitchell Trubisky, his mama call him Mitchell, I'm going to call him Mitchell. You could sign him as a free agent and bring him in to challenge Baker Mayfield. So those are the things you have to weigh as far as, can we sign him? Do we have to trade for him? And are any of the guys actually better than Baker Mayfield, right?
Yep, that's what you got to look at. And, probably sometimes those type of moves are very much. And should we throw, as I said, because I don't understand why he did, should we throw Case Keenum in there too?
No. I think they answered that question. I think they answered that question this year, Michael, by not playing him when they had the opportunity to. And let's be honest, today, I know he completed 12 straight passes. But like I said, the fumble was horrific, okay, for a veteran quarterback. The interception was bad. And I mean, he did a decent job. Do I think he was better than an injured Baker Mayfield? Yes. Do I think he's better than a healthy Baker Mayfield? That's the question where I start thinking, okay, if Baker Mayfield gets back to completely 100%, he's probably equal to or slightly better than Case Keenum. How much, I don't know, but that's why I would at least let it play out for a fifth year with Baker as the starter over Case Keenum as a starter.
Well, that's fine. The one thing I'm going to add that I don't want, you might say, well, those names that the four I do not want them to draft a young quarterback and say we're going to go that route, Kenny. And I'm not saying that they would. In other words, draft a quarterback with the potential intent of that young man being the starter for this football team. That's not a way to go that I think would be in the best interest of this team right now.
All right, Michael. I did my math, and I said we would, and we had a squirrel moment. We got off track, but I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. According to my math, this Baldwin-Wallace education math that I've been able to put together, my education when it comes to math at Baldwin-Wallace would be, how many kegs do we need for the party this weekend? 1, 2, 3, 4 kegs. Okay, 4 kegs. We got it covered in the Alpha Tau Omega fraternity. So that's the extent of my math at BW. But using that math and with the record of 8-9 and other teams' records of 8-9, they would be the Baltimore Ravens and also the Minnesota Vikings. You beat the Vikings, you beat the Ravens in a tiebreaker because divisional record, I believe, is how that works out. So I believe the Browns are going to pick 13th or 14th in this draft, Michael, based on those 3 teams finishing 8-9 and the rest of the teams, including Denver, the Jets, the Texans, the Jaguars, the Washington football team, Seattle, Atlanta, Chicago, Carolina, New York, and Detroit finishing below 8-9. So I think 13 or 14 is where we're going to see the Browns picking in this upcoming NFL draft.
Yeah, sounds about right. Somewhere in that area. So right about, a spot here, a spot there, virtually in the middle of this first round. What should be their highest priority right now?
Receiver. And I have no hesitation whatsoever. This is a good receiver draft with, the 2 from Ohio State, Penn State, USC, just off the top of my head. There's 4 guys right there from those 4 schools.
Arkansas.
Arkansas too. So there's 5, right? Power conferences as well.
Right.
So, I'd love a Garrett Wilson, a Chris Olave. Is it Drake Langdon? Is that the kid from USC?
Drake London.
London,
USC.
Okay. Yeah, he's like 6'5", 210.
Yeah, and the other one, the big, is 6'4" and 2 is a young man named Burks from Arkansas.
Okay.
And that's the other one that I like a lot. But yes, I would be there in that area. I think you're going to need that. I don't think they're going to bring Jarvis Landry back. Probably, I would have think then, Kenny, they'll maybe, I don't know, 5th round, 6th round, 7th round, they might draft another receiver to try to come in here because I believe that right now, I think certainly next year you'd be fine if Donovan Peoples-Jones is your 3. Now, I think eventually he'll be a 2, and he'll be a real good 2. They might even say they believe that they can, start that with him next year. But Kenny, I don't know. He might be. Well, no, Schwartz will be back because they drafted him in the first round here. But I look at him as kind of like just more of a return guy right now, Kenny. He's not a good route runner. And so he's got a lot of improvement to make, I think. And so I feel, there's a reach that I feel Andrew Berry took last year. Got to give the kid, at least a second year, right, and see how much he improves. Hopefully he will. But, Rashard Higgins, no, that's done. That's not coming back. I doubt that they're going to want to pay Landry to come back. So, yeah, you need 2 receivers. And Kenny, free agency with receivers, that's a crapshoot. Yeah, could you hit? Yeah, you could. But again, how many of these guys are free? You think they're going to want to come here? How many of them want to come here with a quarterback situation the way it is?
Well, that's the thing. That's the problem, right? Who is your quarterback? Is it Baker? Is that why they came out and said he had his exit interview Friday and we're planning on moving forward with him? Does that excite you if you're a receiver? Do you want to catch footballs that are high and wide from Baker Mayfield, that are inconsistently thrown from Baker Mayfield, that are tipped at the line of scrimmage from Baker Mayfield? I know I wouldn't unless they were just paying me a ridiculous amount of money. And is it a cash grab or do you want to win, right? What's most important to you as a receiver. But I'm with you. Free up the money from Landry, free up the money from Austin Hooper. Don't forget the Chief, David Njoku, played out his 5th-year rookie contract. So do they bring him back along with Harrison Bryant as the 2 tight ends? Hooper's got to be gone. And Landry, if he wants to come back at a reduced price, maybe, but I don't expect him back. And he hadn't spoken to the media since they got rid of Odell Beckham Jr. So
Correct.
all ain't well in Berea and in the locker room there.
Correct. Right. No, that's right. And so, that is a huge area that needs to be upgraded. It's an area of concern as well. I want a couple of more interior defensive linemen, Kenny. They've got to, when I'm talking about the D tackles specifically. You got, of course, Myles Garrett, and would assume that they're going to look to return Jadeveon Clowney. Fine, but I need that. And I also would like to see them get a real thumper as an inside linebacker, Ken, if they could, for that defense.
Do they value that on the defensive side of the ball, Michael? Do they?
I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. I given what we watched with the defensive inconsistencies and at times just flat out more earlier in the season. I'll give you that. But remember when we were doing the show earlier in the season, all of the defensive inadequacies we kept talking about.
Right.
So you listen, I don't know. That could be a thing. Maybe that's not who they, extol themselves to be, is anything that are needing to add to the defensive side of the football. I don't know. Other than, do we have a good enough secondary that can deal with these passing attacks now in the NFL? If they, I guess they think so. And with Garrett and maybe Clowney, but I think it is important that they, if it can work and they don't have to break the bank, and that's always a thing, get Clowney back here.
Right. Hey, I want to correct something I said. When they do draft order, Michael, the first tiebreaker they use is strength of schedule and not head-to-head or even division, okay?
Yeah.
So according to 3 different websites, the Browns will have the 13th pick in the draft because they had the weaker strength of schedule than the Ravens did. So that means you played an easier schedule and still lost the same amount as the Ravens, who had the tougher schedule. So the Browns, the Vikings, 8 and 9 will have the 12th pick. The Browns, 8 and 9 will have the 13th pick. The Ravens at 8 and 9 will have the 14th pick. Okay. So it looks like they are locked in according to 3 different websites that I've looked at, and at number 13 in the draft. So that's good. They get, an extra spot could get you the guy you really want in that round as well as the other round. So that's always good when it comes down to that. And by finishing in 3rd place, they will play the 3rd place schedule, which is a little bit more tougher than what the 4th place schedule would have been with the Jaguars and the Giants on it. Right. They will not face those 2 teams. That goes to the Baltimore Ravens, who finished in last place. Right. Based on tiebreakers in the division that are different than in the draft. That's how the NFL works.
Yeah. So, and again, next year it's the part of the NFC East.
Yeah.
Correct.
And you have that extra game now, game 17 on the road next year. So 8 home games, 9 away games next season. All right, Michael, final thoughts on this edition of the Regi and Rhoda podcast before we wrap this thing up.
Well, Kenny, it was, again, a very frustrating year. It was a year that I think for the Cleveland Browns has fallen way short of expectations. We just went through all the reasons why. And if you're the type that likes to, to me, make excuses that this didn't go right for them and injury, well, fine. But don't try to tell me now that when we started this back in late August, that everybody, almost to a man and woman, but wasn't thinking that the Cleveland Browns are going to be in the playoffs and have a big year, and it might turn into a real big year as it goes along. Well, that there was nothing that consistently showed that throughout the course of the year. So, that's for me. I think they've all got to take a look at, what they need to do to become a more consistent football team, to be able to close football games and just flat out do enough to back up all the thoughts that people have about you. Because no, you're an average football team. is what you are. And if you can't, you have a big year last year. So if that's what you want to be, have a good year. And then we're not going to make the playoffs next year. And it'll bounce back the next year. And then expectations will rise again. And what? To just fall on your faces again. That's got to stop with this organization, Ken. It just does. They got to start showing some consistency where almost every year, and they go out and prove it then. Yeah, the expectations are there, but then they go out and how about we just start here? How about make the playoffs 3, 4, 5 years in a row? I'm not talking about winning the Super Bowl, Kenny. Make the playoffs at least 3 years in a row. And then maybe it'll start start maybe changing some perspective about who they are. They're not capable of doing that right now. Well, I mean, you had the opportunity this year, didn't do it. So how about that? Is that fair? How about can you make the playoffs 3 years in a row to say that you become at least you're a consistent football team that's continuing to strive to get better? But getting better means you make the playoffs because that's what you got to do. And until you start doing that, Kenny, what are we talking about here? I mean, what it means nothing.
Yeah. I look at this team, and unfortunately, since they started back in 1999, Michael, if they don't figure out the quarterback position, they're not going to make the playoffs 3 years in a row. All right. That to me, it's the most important position, not just in football, I think in all of sports. And it's been nice for them to at least have a quarterback who's started 4 years in a row now, right? Baker took over rookie year, correct? When Tyrod Taylor went down. So he's been your guy 4 years now, correct, Michael? Am I adding that up right again with that Baldwin Wallace math?
That's right.
So fifth year, make or break year. It sounds like he's going to be their guy as long as he's healthy moving forward. We'll see. They can change their mind. And you know what? I hope if an opportunity presents itself that they consider changing their mind to maybe go in a different direction. I don't think he's the guy, so I would go in a different direction. I don't need to see any more for me. All right, I'm done. I would move in a different direction and explore even though it probably is not happening with Russ and Aaron Rodgers, but Jimmy Garoppolo, I could see that as a possibility. But are you willing to give up Baker and a number one? That's probably what it's going to cost you. Or maybe they want 2 number ones. They don't think they need a quarterback because they got Trey Lance in San Fran. Or maybe they stick with Jimmy G and he's not. But they've got to figure this quarterback thing out, or they're not going to go anywhere, because we touched on it earlier in the podcast, Michael. Joe Burrow is the best young quarterback in this division. Lamar Jackson, even though I have questions like you do about in the playoffs, can that style of quarterback, the running quarterback, win you football games? He has an MVP on his resume in the National Football League. So those two, based on that information, are ahead of both the Browns and Steelers, whose quarterback position and their room is an absolute joke moving forward when Big Ben retires. So until the Browns figure that out, Michael, I don't think anything else really matters. To me, that's right. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Well, that's right. And that kind of encapsulates everything that we're talking about. It is the most important situation that you have to have in your favor positively in all of team sports.
Yep.
To me, there's nothing else that even is close, quite honestly. Not in team sports. I mean, and so to that end, they've got to get that squared away, and it's got to be the right way too.
All right, Michael, real quick before we get out of here, we're almost done, and a shout out to Mo Barrow, our producer, filling in for Dave Emmert here today. We're almost finished up on this, Mo, but I just want to get Michael's thoughts. In the NFC, all the playoff spots are filled, Michael Regai. Green Bay, number 1 seed, they get the bye next week. Tampa's your 2, Dallas is your 3, the Rams, even though they lost, your 4 seed. Arizona, San Fran, and Philly are wild cards, 5, 6, and 7. So if my math again is correct, Philly against Tampa, San Fran against Dallas, Arizona against the Rams.
Correct.
Next weekend.
And they're all going to have to go, as long as they don't get beat first. Any of those 6 got to go into Lambeau Field and win eventually to get to the Super Bowl, which I don't think any of them will do. Could a couple of them? Well, yes, but
Right.
will they? I don't think so.
Okay. All right. In the AFC, real quick, your division winners. Number 1 seed is Tennessee. They get the bye. They finished 12-5, win the tiebreaker over KC because they beat them head-to-head. KC's your 2 seed. Buffalo wins their division over New England, who lost today. So Buffalo at 11-6 is your 3 seed. Cincinnati falls to the 4 seed at 10-7. Your wild cards are New England. And then here's where it's crazy. The Chargers and Vegas Raiders are playing while we're taping this, okay?
Yeah.
Whoever wins that game makes the playoffs. Whoever loses that game is out of the playoffs. However, they both make the playoffs should the game end up in a tie. All right? So the Steelers are sitting at 8 on the outside looking in, hoping that the Raiders or Chargers, one of those, they don't care who wins. They just want one of those two to win because if one of those two wins, the Steelers are your 7 seed, and the loser between the Chargers and Raiders, they're out. But I don't know. Could you see the Chargers and Raiders saying to each other, you know what, fellas? We got a shot to both make the playoffs here. Let's rest our guys. Probably not. They're going to try and win the game, but crazier things have happened. I'll just say that.
Can you imagine all that would have to be answered by the NFL if they played to a tie tonight to both get into the playoffs?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah. Like you had a chance to, go for it, near midfield and you just take a knee. Oh, we're in. We're good.
Sure.
Yeah. So instead of maybe getting a sack and getting it strip sack and a fumble return, just take a knee. We're in. Hey, crazy.
Did you say Kansas City's the 2 and they got that locked up?
Yeah, they do.
Tennessee, man. There again, did they look, Ryan Tannehill? Yeah, certainly a nice quarterback.
Right.
A good quarterback. But do you look at Ryan Tannehill is superior to, Patrick Mahomes to be able to, go win an AFC championship game if necessary. But if it comes down to that, though, right, Mahomes would have to go win it in Nashville.
Yes, he would. Yep.
Yeah.
So Tennessee is supposed to get Henry back as well for the postseason.
Well, they need him back.
They wrapped up the bye. They get the extra week for him to recover now, Reg.
They do. And certainly, in January, right, there's, they're going to be at home. They're going to be in Nashville. You don't expect the Lambeau Field type of weather, but, you can get on any particular day, you can get the winter type weather, temperatures in the 30s, and they'll want to run the football with Derrick Henry, of course. So we'll see. They're a very intriguing football team, and Mike Vrabel's done a terrific job with them. I mean, I don't look at them as a team that can win the Super Bowl, Kenny. But then again, I mean, how many thought they'd be the 1 seed in the AFC too?
All right, Green Bay against Kansas City, Michael Regai. There's my pick for Super Bowl 56. What say you?
Yeah, like I just said, I can't go back on my statement I just made. I mean, any one of those good NFC teams, they're going to have to go into Lambeau in the NFC Championship game, and but Rodgers doesn't lose there too often, Ken.
The only one that scares me there would be Brady. Other than that, nobody else is doing it.
Well, Brady just did it last year.
Right, that's what I mean.
Right.
Yeah,
Brady just did it last year. And, so, I'll go with Green Bay. And is there anybody that I feel good about just to be a little bit different than you, just so we can have a little fun? Yeah. I mean, this is going way. And please put this in catching fire at the right time.
Right.
Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills.
Okay. Hey. They've been a disappointment this season based on their record, but at least they made the playoffs. Now they can atone for the poor regular season by making a nice playoff run with the first game being at home, potentially maybe a second game at home as well, depending on who they have to play. Right?
That's right. So that's a real flyer from Regai. But but again, when they've got everything rolling, they are a very formidable football team. But same thing. They're going to have to go on. They'll have to go on the road more than likely to get that done. Unless both Tennessee and Kansas City were to get knocked out. That's the only way they could have an AFC Championship game at home. Correct?
Yeah, they could play a second game there, but not an AFC Championship game unless Casey and Tennessee lose. So we'll see how that goes.
I'll take them as my flyer. All right.
Okay, sounds good. Been a fun season covering the Browns. Coming up, we will do some podcasts pertaining to the NFL playoffs, but we're going to dive into some basketball and some big-time guests that Michael and I have been putting off for the end of football season to grab a hold of baseball and basketball-wise in some of these future episodes of the R&R podcast, and I'm looking forward to that, Reg. That'll be fun.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll have some fun with that, and we'll keep an eye, as we just been discussing on there, the NFL playoffs, and see where that goes throughout the course of January and on into early February. So
all right, I lied.
It'll be fun.
I lied. One more thing. Bama or Georgia?
Oh, yeah. Hey, man, I know they just beat a month ago. Nick Saban in Alabama. Yeah. Now, you got to show me Georgia beating Saban in Alabama. Anybody beating Saban in Alabama in the championship game or in the college football playoffs.
I'm with you.
He's won 6, hasn't he, with Alabama?
Yes, 7 overall, 6 with Bama.
6 with Alabama, and so he's very rarely been beaten in this 4-team playoff structure. So until somebody shows me they can do that, I go with Nick Saban in Alabama.
In order to be the man, you got to beat the man.
There you go.
And I'll stick with Nick the Slick Saban as well. All right, Reg, we'll do this again real soon. Thanks, my friend. Happy New Year to all our listeners, to MGM Northfield Park, the Press Play Podcast Network, to Mo and Dave Emmert. We appreciate all of you for allowing us to do this and you helping us bring it to all our listeners out there in the podcast.